So Canada just defeated Korean Republic 5-1 to finish off the year of games for the year 2024. What does it mean? Well, let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to So What Does It Mean? It's basically our match reaction, where we look at the match, talk about some of the things we learned, anything we can take from it, and kind of talk about just our thoughts and our feelings. If you like this type of content, make sure you hit that like, comment, subscribe, all the fun things. Let's get into the match. So Canada defeats the Korean Republic by a score of 5-1. Own goal in the 22nd minute, and that's all the goals in the first half. Then it's followed by Maria Lidou in the 53rd. Olivia Smith a little bit afterwards, Korea scoring, and then Vanessa Gilles, and then Adrian Leonda complete the scoring. A 5-1 game, which was honestly probably one of their better performances they've had in a very long time. I've been very happy with this type of performance. I think some of us were disappointed with what they were hoping to see against Iceland. Give credit to Iceland, though. They play good defensive front, and based off the rotation that Canada played with, they just weren't able to, that group didn't have the cohesion to get through. What are some takeaways? First, I always like to acknowledge the opposition. I haven't done it in a while, so we're going to do that here. The Korean Republic, solid side, but clearly in a transition. They haven't been able to necessarily get that right mix of young players coming up, but you're seeing some of the fruition of it. But it's the end of the year. We didn't see the best version of them. So this Korean side, I think maybe their 2025 is a bit of a journey to find players. But once they hit 2026, 27, I think by then they'll start to really identify those players and start to get into good form heading into Asian Cup and then also the World Cup 2027. So that's the first thing. Second thing, Olivia Smith is a baller. In case you don't know, now you know. The goal she scored against the third goal that she scores after Maria Lidou scores her goal is a goal that, if you follow the youth national team, she scored that goal against. You've seen her score that goal on every level, right? She scored it at U15, U17, U20, at Penn State for a bit, at Sporting, where she gets the ball, drives to one side, fighting off a few defenders, and then just levels and just layers the ball to the opposite side, forcing the goalie to make a crossbar save, which they aren't able to get to the pace. But that's an Olivia Smith goal. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what this now means for her. Because in their lineup, I think it was very interesting to see kind of how City Tide view this. Now, they don't have Kadisha Buchanan in this window. You don't have Jada Rose. So they went to a 4 at the back, 2 fullbacks, 2 center backs. I think once you get the 3, at least another center back, you move towards that 3 at the back. But I wonder what this means now for an Olivia Smith. What's the best role for her? Her leading the line, I think, is a good experiment to see how she would fare. And I think she passed with flying colors. But I still kind of think, and I think the comparison for the Canadian men's team is, I think she has Jonathan David potential in terms of a second 10, a second forward who plays in the 10 role, who can create, but is also has that light that says, hey, I'm not afraid to get the shot on frame, and we're going to do this. And so what they do with Olivia Smith, I think is going to be intriguing. If they go back to a back 3, does that mean she's one of the 2 that sit in front of... Is she one of the 2 that sit behind the striker? Or do they try to go for a 3-5-2 with 3 midfielders and only 2 wide players being their fullbacks with now wingbacks, and then have Olivia Smith play underneath have her play underneath the 2 strikers in that roaming role? We've seen Lacasse playing that role. We've seen Becky playing that role. But I think that's intriguing to see what they do with that player. Speaking of Lacasse, the Chloe Lacasse school of getting onto the national team, I call this pathway very consistent, because this is now the second player we've seen do this. A player who has played well in Europe but hasn't gotten the call, goes to Benfica and finally dominates, gets the call up, and is now continuing to score consistently and create chances for the national team. Marie-Yasmine Lidou, following the Chloe Lacasse school of hard knocks. Another solid window for her. I think for a lot of us, I am one of the cabin boys on the Marie Du train, so whenever she does anything, I am there for it. But let's speak to the reality of what do they see in what it is. Now, every coach has their favorites. I know people have been dunking on Bev because you've seen players, right? Ellie Du wasn't brought to the Olympics, and it was always the conversation was it wasn't the right time because it's a different cycle. Olivia wasn't brought because she wasn't fit enough, per se. But there is talent, there's depth. I think there's always been depth within the program. I think now we're seeing that depth manifesting in different leagues. We're realizing, okay, there's levels and there's leagues and there's players who can really play well that you're excited to see. But it is a little bit encouraging but disappointing with the reality that a player like Ali Du shouldn't take that long to get her call up to the national team. The same way as Lacash shouldn't have taken that long to get to the national team. I am very much happy to see her scoring, but also it opens the door for, I think this program is at a point where if you aren't playing, you shouldn't just get called up because of your familiarity with the program, right? One of the fun conversations, if you listen to the national team in different places, right? Different people have different thoughts for their national teams, right? Some people might say the national team should be your shop window, right? You can showcase the best of your national players, give them an opportunity to move, and maybe that opens doorways for them. Others say it's a reward. Solid play merits a reward. You come there and play. I think Canada's women's program and their depth of the program is at a point where if you aren't playing well, there's nothing wrong because there are players who are playing at a high enough level that they do merit a chance. And I think going to 2025, I'm going to be very curious to see, especially how the coaching search kind of ends up. I'm curious to see how this new staff treats the roster and specifically the depth, because I think there are players who are playing well everywhere, right? Go back to Benfica. Chandra Davison is playing well. Maybe you find her a little bit too old of a player, but she's there. Victoria Pickett has been solid for years, hadn't got her opportunity as of yet. There are players out there who are continuing to grow, right? Even if you look at the NWSL, like the Zoe Burns of the world, the Maya Joneses of the world, there are players out there, right? Even Bianca St. George, who's out there. There are players who, when they play well, they merit it. And I think give those opportunities to those players to get in, give them a taste, keep on driving them. I think that is important for the program as it grows. Third thing, I think. Are we on the third thing? Well, I stopped counting. Next thing. 2025 is so fascinating to me. Especially when you look at, okay, where are the questions on this roster? I think if everyone is healthy, you add an Olivia Smith into the conversation at 9, and you say, okay, where are the gaps there, right? Is it Heinema? Is it Vienne? Do you give Olivia Smith? Does Michelle get into better form, right? If you look out wide, Deanne has been playing decently, but then you have a Janine, you have Adriana. What do you do out wide in that position? Even we saw Ashley Lawrence playing out on the wing, just to experiment, just because we didn't have the numbers, which, I mean, you have a fresh Clarissa Literacy there. Why not give her the opportunity? But hey, I'm not the coach. I'm not Sydney Tai. The midfield, right? You saw Emma Reagan get another opportunity in the midfield. But then you have Grosso, you have Fleming, you have Awujo. You're playing Ali Du there now. Is Ali Du a 10? Is she an 8 or is she a 9? Ask the coach. It's very fascinating, the opportunities that could come there. I think just because of injury, the fullback position is so fascinating to me, just because you have Ashley Lawrence, who is the constant. She's the reliable player. After that, for fullbacks, I mean, your fullback depth is a little bit injured. Gabby Carl, I think, has been just underutilized and under-rewarded this whole time. I think she is in that conversation. But after those two, Sydney Collins, injury. Jade Riviere, who I think most of us think is the player who should have had this position kind of sewed up, but her lack of availability has left the door open for Gabby Carls to continue to play well, for Sydney Collins to come in and play well. she's left the door open, and she left the game with a knock here. And so the fullback position, I think that is the more fascinating. If there is a hole or if there's a place where players can maybe crack the roster, I think it's that fullback position. Center backs, Megan Reed, a good shift. You still have Jada Rose, who had an ankle. Kadisha's going to be out for a while. So I think center backs might be getting more looks. It was good to see Jeanette Okeke get a look, but didn't get into the game. So we have to assume training either went really well or they decided to go with veterans and experienced hands. At goalkeepers, I think, again, Sabrina D'Angelo and Kaylin Sheridan, both of them only played one half each, and then Lysiane got a full game's worth of experience, which, against this type of opposition, maybe a few chances, a little bit shaky on the ball, but we'll kind of see where that goes from there. But I'm very much fascinated to see how this year ends and where the year begins next year. And we didn't even mention the kids, right? We didn't mention Geneva Hernandez-Gray, who looked solid in her role, picked up an assist on the goal. Great advancing the ball. Again, hey, that's what a spring, or actually not spring, that's what a fall played against professionals in the CONCACAF Champions Cup for Women does for you. Plus winning League 1 BC again, right? Nia Rose getting some run, got a taste of senior minutes. Where does she go now? There are so many fascinating conversations on the women's side, but I think going into 2025, fullbacks are going to be the position I watch the most. I think everyone else, all the other positions, maybe if you're looking for a winger, maybe that's where you say don't sleep on an Amanda Allen if she gets minutes, or don't sleep on if you want to put Olivia Smith out wide, and maybe that solves your out wide conversation. There will always be a Rose, and we kind of look at it that way. But I'm very much fascinated to see what 2025 holds for the women's national team. Guys, let me know what you thought about the game. Who was your standout? I think for me, Olivia Smith was the standout for that game, but Marie was solid in all things. Deanne had a solid bounce back game, a solid way to end her year there. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this year, but also this game. And as always, guys, thanks for being here. We'll have a better, more detailed recap later on. But for now, guys, thanks for being here. And as always, I'm going to stop talking right here.